In this video, we will be covering the format of a position paper and going through all of the nitty-gritty details to understand how to write a paper. So you can take a look at page 116 of your training manual, which will provide more instructions on the formatting of a position paper. It might be a little bit more thorough than what we'll get a chance to cover here. You should also take a look at the National Model UN Position Paper Guide, since that covers exactly what Model UN wants to see or National Model UN wants to see in terms of formatting for position papers. If you want to understand what we will be looking at when we revise your position papers, there is a rubric available on page 122 of your manual and on Canvas. And in your manual on page 124, you can find more examples, and some of those are here on Canvas as well. So look through those examples and try to familiarize yourself with the writing style of a position paper. So in terms of the formatting, the ENMAN position paper guidelines are pretty straightforward. So a couple of the guidelines I've listed here for you. So keep in mind that your paper will be 2 pages back and front. So essentially just two pages of context for your topics. The margins will be set at about 1 inch, so a standard written paper for many of your classes. They do recommend Arial font. I've seen papers written in different fonts, but we're going to try to stick to Arial. And 10-point font minimum, 12-point font maximum. You will need to justify align each paragraph so that it looks like each paragraph has very neat edges. You cannot include the name of the university or organization or your own name on the paper. And because this is not a formal paper, you will need actual citations like in a formal paper. So you don't have to add any in-text parenthetical citations or any of that. Each topic should also be clearly labeled in separate sections, so it's very clear that all the topics are there, and you cannot have any national symbols, so no flags or banners or any of that. So here's an example of the format of a position paper. Notice the titles of the paper at the very top, where it says delegation from the Federative Republic of Brazil. So it includes the formal name of the country, and below that the title for position paper for the UNDP, the development program. So you'll need to include the title of your committee. And in the first paragraph after the title, just introduces the topics of the committee. In this case, there are 3 topics that they'll be discussing. And then after that, you'll see that they begin the first topic. And so it's clearly labeled. And notice that the text is justified align, so it has straight edges. All right, continuing on this example, I sort of just cut it into smaller parts just to get you to notice the different sections. So notice that the topics are clearly labeled. So the first topic, number 1, building democratic governance. Number 2, fostering developing countries' capacities. And so you'll have to do this for each topic that you're covering in your position paper. Notice also that the paragraphs themselves are justified align, so they have smooth or straight edges on the left and the right. If you want to look at more examples, feel free to check on Canvas and your training manual, and we'll cover another one in a couple of slides. So next, let's take a look at how to write your paper in terms of the paragraphs. So the paragraph model, it depends pretty much on your tastes. We used to write position papers as 1 big paragraph, and some students prefer to write it as 2, but now we're switching to the 3-paragraph model. I think that this paragraph model is a little bit easier for more students to understand, because in this format, a position paper section is split into 3 pretty concise paragraphs. So if you're writing on climate change in one of your topics, that whole paragraph itself will be 3 sections. But just be aware that each section is still substantive, so you'll need to cite lots of reports and conferences and other information. So here I just want to show you what that sort of looks like, the 3 paragraphs, as you can see, laid out here. And I've highlighted important resolutions, cited information, conferences, and so on. So you can see that it is quite substantive, and your paper will likely end up looking very similar. So let's take a look at the 3-paragraph model. So each paragraph in the 3-paragraph model will have a different purpose. In the first paragraph, ideally you should try to introduce the topic and provide a context for the background information about the topic itself. So this means you should be able to highlight some of the problems or challenges that you find in the actual topic that later on your solutions will try to address. So this part is not very long. It in fact should be one of the shorter paragraphs, really just because your directors are not looking for you to repeat the topic guide. They just want to know that you understand the topic. So once you've established that you do, in your second paragraph, you will detail any international actions that are taken by the UN or other countries that your country supports, including resolutions and conferences and other work by relevant UN bodies. You can also describe regional initiatives or actions taken by regions that your country is a part of or that they support. And you can also try mentioning some of the previous things your country has done to address the topic. Just remember to keep things concise, as each paragraph itself will take up quite a bit of space. And in your last paragraph, this is really your solutions paragraph. So here you can discuss previous initiatives or programs that your country has implemented, especially ones that you believe other member states can implement or utilize to try to make progress on the topic. You can also provide solutions or recommendations for the committee to try to address the topic and hopefully make some progress on the topic itself so that you can address some of the challenges you've mentioned in the first paragraph. So now let's take a look at an example. In this position paper authored by the state of Eritrea in the Human Rights Council, they're looking at privacy in the digital age. So here in the first paragraph for you, I've highlighted in yellow some of the challenges that the author has indicated exist in the topic. So your first paragraph should be dedicated to outlining what some of the challenges might be that you can then address in the rest of the paper. So looking at the next paragraph here. In your second paragraph, again, you're talking about international actions that your country supports and trying to tie in previous resolutions, declarations, and things like that to put together some of the substance for what you want to address in the topic. So here the author has mentioned the International Bill of Human Rights, the Regional Conference on Asylum and Migration, and so on. And then in the last paragraph, again, you're trying to list some of the solutions and recommendations that you have for the committee. So in yellow, I've highlighted some of the solutions and recommendations that Eritrea has proposed. So you'll have to have several in your own paragraphs as well. And with good research, it should be pretty easy to come up with solutions and recommendations that can make progress on the topic.